What's going on, guys? The Arid Lord is here. Can you see me? Yes, you can see me. Sorry for the bland look today. Just doing some work here. One of the things I wanted to do was jump back into the channel. It's been 10 days. I check my video manager whenever I go on YouTube, and I always see the upload date of my most recent video. And as of late, I've been covering a lot of negative content surrounding The Walking Dead and a lot of the actors leaving. It's not good over in Walking Deadville, especially since a lot of my YouTube channel, if not the entire channel, really focuses on Walking Dead content in its entirety. So I wanted to take a step away from The Walking Dead and actually talk about a film that I saw last weekend, just about a week ago. You can actually see it. Obviously, I put the image, for whatever topic I'm discussing, I put an image into XSplit. So that you guys know. The picture below is just like it's something from The Walking Dead, so it has like a cool background, so I just leave that there. But so yeah, I'm excited to talk about this. I wanted to do this review and predictions later, like just like a day or just the same day that I saw the movie, because I usually do that with films that I've seen. I did that for the Avengers Infinity War. As soon as I saw it, it was just such an orgasmic experience of violence and destruction that I had to do a review right after that. So this is as soon as I can do it for Incredibles 2. But I just gotta say, like, overall, like, just congrats to Brad Bird, to Pixar, to the monopoly known as Disney. Uh, I mean, this film was just incredible. I'm going to be using that word probably ironically throughout this whole review, so apologies if you get sick of it. I'll try to look for better synonyms as I go through. But I love this film, man. This film, it has the same feel as the first one in terms of humor, in terms of action, in terms of character dialogue, in terms of the family dynamic. There's a lot to appreciate here, and I'm just so glad because in an age where sequels have disappointed me so thoroughly, I'm talking about you, Last Jedi. In an age these days where sequels can be hit or miss, you don't know if they're going to be good. You could be waiting for a game or a movie or a TV show, some type of reboot sequel to return, and it lowers your expectations, and you went in with such high. I think people come in with unreasonable high expectations sometimes, and they're usually missed. Mostly I'd say like 95% of the time people's expectations are just completely missed, primarily because I think they were a bit out of proportion, because the first film or the first iteration sets such high standards that you're looking for it to break those high standards. So if The Incredibles 1 went to Mount Everest, you're looking for Incredibles 2 to go into the stratosphere in outer space. So I think and for me, like, I tried not to say, okay, like, Syndrome was a great villain, the plot of the first movie was amazing. I didn't want to go into this movie with crazy overall expectations, but it was just a fun, enjoyable film. It was just fun and enjoyable. Now, I am going to be doing some predictions for Incredibles 3 in this review slash discussion, as the title signified. I will be talking about Incredibles 3, even though that's not really announced yet. But I think Disney and Pixar will. Let me just go over these box office numbers with you here via Forbes. And actually, this article is talking about The Incredibles joining the $100 million Losers Club, which means when a film hits $100 million plus in its opening weekend, but then does less than that when it jumps down to its to the following weekend that it's available. So, it's that doesn't neutralize the interest that was originally garnered for this film. Let me see here. So yeah, it says that Brad Bird's superhero sequel is still a huge hit with 350.3 million domestic in 10 days and 485 mil global cumulative, with lots more left to go. The movie played more like a general audience's mega hit than a kid powered super smash, hence the normal weekend multiplier. Okay. So, yeah, and The Last Jedi is still in freaking. You know what? I am so looking forward to, and I'm so glad that the Solo movie failed and it didn't hit its numbers, because that's going to be a very telling sign of where Episode 9 goes. And that's not what this review is about at all. But I just, for me, the reason I looked at that Forbes article is because I'm glad that this film did well. It deserved to do well. It was a fun film. I will say I enjoyed the villain from the first movie better. I think Syndrome, you can't beat Syndrome. I mean, that guy was funny. That guy was twisted. He murdered so many superheroes just to get to Mr. Incredible. He had those Omni droids, his army base of operation. I mean, he was just a cool villain. That 0-point energy, freezing people, and his rocket jetpack boots. He was just a really interesting, cool villain. Screenslaver in this film, it's funny because you see it coming from a mile away, like who Screenslaver is going to be. Like, at least Syndrome, you really didn't think, okay, this kid that worships Mr. Incredible, like how, sure, he had those rocket boots in the beginning, but did you really think that he was going to become this rich psychopath that was going to use his money on a lifelong vengeance quest against Mr. Incredibles to become a superhero himself? That's wow, okay. But in this one, you can see, as soon as the new characters come in, so the business executive, who's played by Bob Odenkirk from Better Call Saul, and then the sister, you knew one of them was going to be not as they seemed. And Saul's characters, they never really take on this villainous role, and so it was the sister, and she never actually wears the Screenslaver gear. Actually, a pizza delivery man in this scene, again, I'm talking about spoilers here, but a pizza delivery man, it's a cool fight scene between Mrs. Incredible and this guy, but that's the only time there's an actual fight with this. So the guy that's in the image up in the upper right, like, there's only one fight scene that Mrs. Incredible has with him, and it's just a decoy. And so the main weapon in this film is the mind control. So where the fight scenes in this film come in is Screenslaver putting these these glasses on the people that she captures, and then they fight for her. So you have these new superheroes that actually come out of the woodwork, because the whole theme of this film is this billionaire trying to legalize superheroes again. Okay, he's trying to bring supers back into the spotlight, and this is good because it's a lingering problem that the first film left. Even though Mr. Incredible and his family stopped Syndrome and stopped the Omni droid, the superheroes haven't been legalized. Like, everyone was obviously clapping, and the agency guy was like, well, I'll see what I can do, but it was always kind of a lingering thing that was kind of left over. And when you see the Underminer conflict, it's really like, it really opens the floodgates. Like, oh wow, like, people are still not happy about superheroes causing destruction, and the media paints them to be villains. So it was basically the perception of superheroes. How are the perceptions of superheroes? And because of Syndrome's actions in killing off some of the notable superheroes of the first film that we didn't get to, we know about them, like Gazer Beam and a few others. The father of the sister and the tycoon was killed from just robbers in the house. That's the backstory. And she doesn't want supers to be legalized, and she wants supers to have a negative opinion in the world, mainly because of how they negatively impacted her. And it's a very simplistic villainy tale. It was enjoyable, but it doesn't hit Syndrome levels. Like, it was just okay. It's like, okay, like, I was expecting some convoluted, like, I was expecting Screenslaver's endgame to be much, much more in depth, like what he/she was trying to do, especially with that mask. Like, whenever you get a villain in a mask, you're really expecting for some mystery to really unravel and solve. And you had that in the first film, where you're guessing, what's this, there's Mr. Incredible's doing work for Mirage, and even her name sounds a little spooky and weird, and something's not right. And then eventually Syndrome is revealed with the big, like, the S symbol that was on the table. There's a lot of hints towards it, and then finally he comes out and he's like, here I am. He gives his big monologue-y, showy, and then even then there's more secrets built on his built on what he did with, when Mr. Incredible accesses Project Kronos, probably the best scene of the film. There were just many layers to that, and I liked it. And this just seems kind of simplistic, like, oh, her father was killed, she doesn't like superheroes, so she's gonna use the money, her brother's money, to paint this whole facade about supers. And it was very much about video technology and TV technology, the mind control thing with the eyes. So they do a role reversal in this film where Mrs. Incredible is now the main lead. They want to put her in the spotlight, and Mr. Incredible is the stay-at-home dad. So you have the family dynamic with him dealing with each of the kids' problems. So each kid has like a unique problem. Violet is trying to get her boyfriend back, who had his mind wiped. Dash is trying to figure out how to learn math for a test. And then Jack, they just discovered that he has powers. So Mr. Incredible's trying to figure out all these powers that his kid has. Edna helps a little bit, which is, again, any scene with Edna is amazing, which is great. So it's fun. It's fun. I like that Mr. Incredible kind of takes a little bit of a backseat. I mean, you really don't get any fight scenes with him. I mean, the only fight scenes that he's in the Underminer fight scene. The whole family fights in that, because that's a great way to start the film. And it's also super cool that it starts seconds after the first one ends. I mean, talk about continuity. 14 years later, and you're keeping that continuity. I mean, that's got to count for something. But yeah, Mr. Incredible fights the Underminer. He's in the very end of the movie, the big climax when they're trying to stop the cruise ship. He's involved in that rescue effort. The whole family is. Frozone gets a little bit more time in this. Like he helps out Mr. Incredible with the family a little bit more. He helps with the Underminer conflict. He's got a few more shots. We still don't see his wife, Honey. She gets another liner in here where she's talking about going out and stuff. The "Where's my super suit" line, the famous one from the first one. So great film. I mean, I give it a 9.5 because, again, it didn't disappoint me. It didn't have this radically different feeling. It had great action, great special effects. The characters were funny. Jack is absolutely hilarious with his powers. I mean, he has a freaking fight with a raccoon in this film. Like, that's just, it's so funny. Like, could some of that time with the raccoon fight been spent building up Screenslaver's character a bit more? Okay, probably. But it was still fun. And I tried to not go into this film, like I said in the beginning of my review, I tried to not go into this film saying, this is what the film is going to be. It's going to be 1,000 times better than Incredibles 1. I was going to say, okay, it might be a little better than the Incredibles 1. Maybe it'll be, it'll try to shoot for the stars, but maybe it'll miss a little bit up the mountain, Okay, and that's what it ended up doing. It was an enjoyable film with a somewhat predictable villain. But the new superheroes, the one that has like the portal, like if anyone has played the video game Portal, there's a superhero that literally has like the power of Portal. There's another person that can like turn metal, almost like a metal bender from Avatar, and can scrunch the metal. And when Screenslaver possesses them, they become villains temporarily. So you get to see, Violet, Dash, and are the superheroes we know fighting against these superheroes who are good guys, but they've been mind controlled. So, it instead of just having like bad guy villains, because in the first one you had an army, you had Syndrome soldiers who had guns, and then you had their flying saucer devices. So it was very much the army who were the adversaries that they were fighting on the island, and then the Omni Droid. So it was all technology. There were a lot of technology villains. In the second one, it's more superheroes fighting. It's more of kind of like an Avengers thing where it's superheroes fighting superheroes. That's more what this film is. So, and again, that's good because it's like you're diversifying your film. Like, you don't want the same thing from the first one where it's another military operation owned by some rich billionaire psychopath. there is a rich billionaire in this film, but he's using his money for different purposes. This is a guy who's trying to, he's a big media tycoon, and he's goofy, and he drinks cocktails, and he's trying to, he has a political mission. It's a political mission. So I liked it. I liked the film. The Incredibles 2 was awesome. And where does The Incredibles 3 go from here? That's how I titled this video. Where do we go for The Incredibles 3? When Brad Bird was asked about this, he said, you know what, people just enjoy the second one. People always seem to ask me when you're going to do more of the thing you just did. Hold off. That's kind of what he's saying. Hold your horses here, pal. So I'm gonna say this. There was one big reason I made this video, and other than to review the film, there were rumors. I don't know if anyone remembers, but there were rumors when The Incredibles 2 was being first announced that they were gonna make one. People were discussing theories for what the story was going to be about, and one of the prevailing theories, even as recent as a year ago, was that Jack Jack was going to be the villain, that Jack Jack was going to be a teenager, and that we were going to see him dealing with his powers. Because he has so many and they're so unpredictable, he could be a real threat. Like, if Jack Jack was ever a villain when he grows up, like, he would be an insanely powerful, just, he has the, I mean, think of the powers he has. He has the laser beam eyes. He can turn on fire. He can turn into that big, like, monster thing. He can hop into different, like, he can do the dimension hopping, where they had to use that tracker to find what dimension he's in or whatever. Like, he's got some crazy freaking powers. So, and we saw a preview of some of these powers at the end of Incredibles 1 when Syndrome's trying to capture him, and you see a couple of his powers just cycling. And then there was the extra, I'm not sure if it was in like the DVD or whatever, but it was where the babysitter was watching Jack Jack, and you get to see, it's called Jack Jack Attack. And it connects the events, because at the very end, Syndrome comes, and that's when you see, oh, that's how he found out where Jack Jack was, and that's when he captures him. So, there was a prevailing theory that was going to be the plot of the second film. Now, we clearly didn't get that. Everyone was completely wrong. I don't know where these theories came from that was going to be the case, but that was in no way true. So, for the third film, I'm thinking that maybe they should do that, because the second one, it's like, okay, you open up right where the first one ends. You fight the Underminer. I mean, the Underminer escapes, by the way. I mean, maybe the Underminer could come back into play in the third film. Maybe. I'm going to say that. But again, I don't think so. I think the Underminer was just like a fun villain. I think he was just there just to be a villain. Like, I'm trying to steal some money and I got away and you'll fight me one day. Like, he wasn't like a villain like Syndrome or Screenslaver that had emotional depth and valid philosophies and reasons and arguments. That wasn't his angle. That wasn't, that's not Underminer. He's just a villain. He's got a giant drill and he tries to steal money, apparently. That seems to be what it is. And it also seemed like Mr. Incredible and Underminer knew each other. When Mr. Incredible jumps in, he's like, oh, look, Mr. Incredible. I'm like, has he fought Underminer before? And I was like, I never knew that. Like, you don't get that inkling. Well, at the end of the first film, they just look at each other and then they put on the suits and the film ends. So there's only a brief appearance from Underminer at the end, but still. But yeah, I think the third film should have all the characters aged up. That's my prediction. I want the third film to have like maybe Violet's in college. Now Dash is maybe he's in college, or he's a teenager, or maybe he's got like a girlfriend or something. And then Jack Jack is older. Like, I want him to be talking, no more baby gibberish. I want him to be talking, practicing with his powers. Maybe Mr. and Mrs. Incredible are thinking about retirement. Maybe they're thinking about like actually retiring and hanging up the cape. Maybe it can be like a Rocky Balboa situation where Mr. and Mrs. Incredible, they're leaning back. They got a mimosa. If anyone remembers from the first one, would you care for some more mimosa? Um, so yeah, maybe sipping a mimosa, and they're just like, all right, the world's safe. There's no need for us to be the protectors of the world anymore. Let's just leave it to our children. And then there's some conflict. There's another villain. Maybe there's a suit. Maybe the villain of the third film can be an actual bad superhero villain, because Syndrome wasn't a superhero. He was a human who used technology to his advantage. And in some ways, Screenslaver is too. She used mind control, whereas Syndrome used money and manipulation, and almost sci-fi-ish technology. She used more mind control. She went down like one avenue for how she manipulated her powers, or manipulated others with her powers. So the third film could be like a legit like superhero villain that has powers and that has motivations. I don't want just an underminer, like I said. I don't want somebody who's just trying to steal money or conquer the world or some generic plot. Make it have depth to it, but maybe bring in Jack-Jack's growing up with his powers. Maybe Jack-Jack can be something like an Anakin Skywalker, where he's like lingering on like dark side, light side kind of moral decisions with his powers, and how, yeah, that would be a cool angle, because Brad Bird has always said that he'd only do these films if they had good plot lines and that if they had good relations to superhero conflicts. The first one dealt with Mr. Incredible's midlife crisis. The second film dealt more with Mr. Incredible's family dynamic, but then also the legality and the politics of what the role of superheroes is in the world. So the third film could explore the moral compasses of that. Like, if you have, now that the world's kind of settled and the world accepts you as superheroes, like, where are the moral fibers of that? And if you jump right into the dynamic of the family, that would be a very interesting landscape to explore, because now you have, we've seen Jack-Jack as a baby for 2 films now. So now it would be cool to see him older, and we know his past of how he kind of grew his powers, and it was maybe all of these powers. Some people have hypothesized, this is another popular theory, that Jack-Jack is going to have one power. And the reason why he has all of these other powers, like the electricity, the fire, the lasers, it's kind of like puberty. I guess superhero puberty. Like, he's trying to figure out, like, his body is trying to figure out what power he wants. And people have hypothesized that Dash and Violet also went through this, until Dash settled on the super speed and Violet settled on invisibility and the force field stuff. So she got 2 powers, technically. So I don't know how it works. Because, see, that's an interesting thing. Like, how do superheroes get their powers in this film? Is it just genes? Is it genetics? Like, a superhero has to birth another superhero into the world? That would be something interesting to explore too. Maybe Edna has some answers to that. Maybe her technology, the research, history. It would be cool. Like, maybe have Jack-Jack, like, as he grows up, maybe in order to have the moral compass of his powers, he has to learn about the history of superheroes. Who was the first superhero in the world of the Incredibles, in the world of Brad Bird? Who was the first superhero who really jumped into the public eye and said, I will start saving people one person at a time, trying to do good. These powers are not to be abused. And Jack-Jack's like, well, my powers are so powerful, my powers are so powerful. The potency behind my powers makes me think I can do a lot of different things, more than just good. I can defeat a bully, or I can steal money, maybe, kind of like the Underminer. I could do a little evil, maybe go to the other side. It would be interesting, because this is our superhero family, and to see them maybe waver a little bit would be interesting. There are times in this film where Mr. and Mrs. Incredible they both have the glasses on, and they're both they're partially villains in this film, because towards the end, I mean, they're just mind controlled, but they use the elastic powers and Mr. Incredible's strength for bad, obviously, to further Screenslaver's agenda, until the glasses are removed and destroyed, of course. But temporarily we get to see in this film the bad application of these powers, like the portal powers, the metal scrunching powers. Like we see all of them used in a negative form. So that would be a cool teaser. Like, oh, maybe, forget the glasses and the mind control. You get a villain who actually has some decent powers, has mastered them, and I mean, I think it would be interesting. I definitely think the characters should be aged up, though, because that would give the film a new feel. Because if people go into this film like, oh, we still have the baby, we still have the angsty teenage girl, we still have the rioting kid, Dash, we have Mr. Incredible, Mrs. Incredible. I mean, we've had 2 films of this. We've had 2 films, and both of them did it well in different areas. But I think the third film should age the characters up, and I think that should be the final film. I think The Incredibles 3, they should do one more film where you do like the history of superheroes, you go to the past, you go to the future, you have Jack's future, and basically the next generation. Maybe Mr. Incredible, Mrs. Incredible have to come out of retirement briefly to solve a conflict, and then they go into permanent retirement at the end of the film. So I think, I don't know if this prediction, I'm making this prediction on June 26th of 2018. If I don't know if I have to wait 14 more years for an Incredibles movie, but if I do, and I'm in my 30s, I don't know if I'm going to be still making YouTube videos by then, but I will come back to this channel. Hopefully YouTube doesn't die or go broke or bankrupt or all the videos on YouTube are deleted, but hopefully I can say that I was correct, because I think the more I talk about this idea, I think it would be perfect. Like, what would be a more perfect idea for the third film? I mean, yeah, it would be absolutely, it would be incredible. There we go. We came full circle. So anyway, that's my review of The Incredibles 2, and those are my predictions for the third film. Even though Brad Bird hasn't officially announced it, I am going to go on a limb and say that Disney and Pixar, I just told you the numbers at the beginning of this video. Do you really think Pixar and Disney aren't knocking on Brad Bird's door and saying, hey, yeah, I know you just finished that film, that took 14 years, but yeah, when do you think you're going to make another one? Because we just made bank. We just made bank off of a film that we didn't think... did Disney really not think people were waiting? Like, think of how many years people have been waiting for this film. And then it finally came out. So, this, like, The Incredibles 1, the first film, it is still my favorite animated movie of all time. It beats any animated film I've ever seen. And I know that's saying a lot. Like, it beats Lion King, Toy Story, Monsters, Inc., It is a masterpiece, the first film. Again, the second one is a worthy successor, but I still like the first one more. And if there's ever a third one, I guess we'll have to see. I mean, come on, you can add one more eye. You can do one more. You can do one more. Hey, there's enough space on there. You can have 3. 1, 2, 3. I mean, 3's a good stopping point. I mean, all good things end in 3s. All right. I don't think you should go beyond that. I think 3 is good. I don't know, like just like with Toy Story, I don't know why they're doing a Toy Story 4. I mean, everything else has had a trilogy. You've had Cars 3, Toy Story 3, Monsters, Inc. got 2 films, Finding Nemo got 2 films. But you better believe they're probably going to make a third one of those. Unless Pixar goes with new IPs. Who knows? We'll see. So all right, so that's it for me for this video. 9.5 for The Incredibles 2. We will see what the future holds. I follow Brad Bird on Twitter now, but again, I think it's gonna be a while. Like, that guy, I mean, the thing is, I'll give it 2 years. I'll give it 2 years because next year, Toy Story 4 is Pixar's next film. Which, actually, Toy Story 4 was supposed to come out this year, and then The Incredibles 2, but they reversed it. But which I don't know why Toy Story 4 would have come out first. I mean, so I'm glad they did it this way. So, after 2019, in 2020, what's the next Pixar film going to be? I don't know. I don't know if they've already announced it. I'm going to have to check. So, I mean, I'll give it 2 years, and then I'll kind of, I'll do Google searches and just see Incredibles 3, and there's already articles talking about it, and I'm sure people are already pestering Brad Bird and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, I mean, the actors who play Mr. and Mrs. Incredible are old, though. I mean, I think they're in their, 70s going on 80, so you'd probably only have enough time. You'd only have like 10 years max. Like, you don't want them to get too old because their voices are either going to go or they're going to die of old age. I mean, you don't want that to happen. So, you were lucky that you got the same actors to come back 14 years later. Even the actors, like for Dash, like the kid couldn't come back because his voice changed, so you needed someone else. So, yeah, I mean, we'll see what the future holds. I would like an Incredibles 3, and I hope it utilizes the ideas I talked about, because I think it would be a nice little trilogy. It would be a nice you'd have a different theme for every film. Every film would be a different theme, and it would be a great universe. It'd be a great universe to expand upon because there's so much potential. I mean, you just added all these new superheroes with all these new powers. I mean, you got a lot of potential. So hopefully we'll see. So anyway, that's it for me, guys. Thank you for watching. Sorry I haven't been uploading content for a bit. It's pretty dry with the Walking Dead stuff. I really don't. That show is just a huge question mark. There's been a lot of news about different actors coming and going, interviews, and I might talk about it later in another vlog. But for now, thank you for watching me talk about this, The Incredibles, and I will see you all later for more reviews. Peace out.